everyone, welcome back to Actual English. I'm Jennifer Clyde. It's time for lesson 267 and we are continuing with the category housing. Today let's talk about current housing. Perhaps we'll be describing the house that we live in right now. So we'll get help from Kelly and Gareth. They'll be telling us about their current houses, the houses that they live in right now. But if someone were to ask you that question, so tell me about your place, tell me about your house, what would you tell them? Which details would you add to your response? Perhaps you can begin by talking about whether you live in a house or an apartment. You can talk about how large it is, how small it is, how many rooms your house has, who you live with could be briefly mentioned as well. You could also talk about the kitchen, how many restrooms or bathrooms you have in your house, and much more. Balconies, if you have a terrace, you can talk about that. If you have a front yard, even a backyard, there's so much you can add to your response when talking about your house, right? Okay, so we'll practice doing that today. If you're ready, let's begin with actual talk.
So Kelly, tell me about your current place. What's it like?
Well, I've actually just moved and it's completely different than any place I've ever lived in before.
Really?
Yeah, it's not Korean style. It's not exactly what I'd consider Western style either.
Right.
If
Sounds
we could
interesting.
say a fusion home.
Wow, classy.
Yeah, because in Canada, well, it's small,
Sure.
but in Canada we had houses, which is very rare. In Korea, European style houses.
Sure, same in Ireland.
And in the past, I always had apartments
Right.
or Korean style apartments. This one is kind of a cross between an office style and I guess you might say a greenhouse.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Nature.
I bought it for this reason. This
Sure.
really cool garden room in
Oh,
the back of
lovely.
a very modern studio-like setup with two rooms on the side.
Wonderful.
Isn't that neat?
Oh, yeah. It's nice to
Yeah.
have nature close to you in your house, isn't it? Yeah, we have plants as well.
Plants
Yeah.
are beautiful, so
Aren't they?
I filled the room with plants. But I
Good.
keep looking at it thinking, I got to do something really interesting with
Sure.
that room,
Yeah.
or else it doesn't feel right. So
Sure.
I keep racking my brains thinking,
Yeah.
is it going to be a greenhouse? Is it going to be for entertaining?
Sure.
An art studio.
Sure.
It's such a cool room.
Have it for everything.
Yeah.
Fusion. Yeah.
Well, fusion.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that housing is... It's something that is important. You go and you don't spend a lot of time there if you're busy, but
Yeah.
it's still yours and it's personal.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You like your place, right?
I do. I love it. Yeah, but it's super small. So
Yeah, you
it's,
mentioned that you wanted to move.
Yeah, we do. We do. It's very small.
Well, they always say that, there's that idiom, home is where the heart is. But
Yeah.
I always feel like it doesn't really matter where you live as long as you're with people you love and you love what you're doing, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Welcome back, everyone. What do you remember from the conversation? Well, Kelly and Gareth were talking about their homes. Kelly mentioned that her place is very similar to a studio type apartment. And there are 2 rooms and there's also a nice garden. A cool garden is what she said. What about Gareth? He said that he wants to move to another place. He did mention that he would like to move to a larger place, right? Okay, let's take a look at the conversation then. Here we go. Now, Gareth says, Kelly, tell me about your current place. Now, as our topic is current home or current house, this means the exact same thing. We went over place. Place can mean location or area, but it can also mean your house, whether it's a house or an apartment. So, tell me about your current place, meaning tell me about the place that you live in, your house or apartment. What's it like? What is it like? Kelly says, well, I've actually just moved. So she has just moved into her new place, and it's completely different than any place I've lived in before. You can say it's different from or different than. Okay, usually in American English, you would say that something is different from something. A is different from B, but than is also used quite commonly. Okay, so moving on, she says it's not Korean style. It's not exactly what I consider Western style either. So the point is, it's not Korean style, and it's also not Western style. I wonder what kind of place she lives in. She gives more details as they continue the conversation. So Gareth says, right, classy. That's our vocab word for today's lesson, classy. What comes to mind when I say classy? A person can be classy or a thing can be classy, such as a house. If you say that somebody looks classy or is classy, it could mean that he or she is very intelligent, is very stylish, sophisticated, okay? And also, if you describe a house or a location or a structure to be classy, you are saying that it looks sophisticated, okay? It is of some rank or class, and yes, it's quite stylish, very nice looking, luxurious, okay? So classy is what he means by that. Now, Kelly says, yeah, well, it's small, but in Canada, we had houses which are very rare in Korea. So she's talking about the houses in Canada. They're very different from the houses here in Korea, okay? She says the European style houses. So she's basically saying you will see a lot of European style houses in Canada, which are very rare in Korea. Rare meaning hard to find, okay? And then Gareth says, sure, same in Ireland. Now, Gareth is from Ireland, so he says, yeah, that's right. It's the same in Ireland as well. You will see more European-style houses in Ireland, is what he's saying. Now, Kelly says, in the past, I always had Korean-style apartments. Now, she says, I always had Korean-style apartments. Now, she's not saying that she had something as in to own, but she's simply saying that in the past, she has lived in Korean-style apartments, okay? So she says, I always had Korean-style apartments. I always lived in Korean-style apartments. This one, meaning the one that she lives in right now, is kind of a cross between an office-tel and I guess you might say a greenhouse. Okay, so let's figure out what she means by this. She says, her current place, her current house, this one, is kind of a cross. Okay, cross is what? A cross is a mixture or a combination of two things, two very different things. So she's saying that it is a combination, a mixture, a cross between an office-tel and, I guess you might say, a greenhouse. So she's saying it's a little bit like an office-tel and it's also a little bit like a greenhouse. So a greenhouse and an office-tel are very different. So she's saying it's kind of a mixture, a combination of these two things. We all know what an office-tel is, right? But what is a greenhouse? We see many of them, even in Korea, especially in the countryside. We may see them in the city, but not in the center or the heart of the city. Greenhouses are places where you will see glass or even, I think, transparent plastic. They're covered, okay? And these greenhouses are places where people or farmers grow plants. Okay, and they're usually covered or surrounded by glass or even transparent plastic. Greenhouse, greenhouse, okay? So now you have an idea of what her place is like. It's a little bit like an office-tel. It's a little bit like a greenhouse. Now Garrett says, oh, nice. He's imagining what her place might look like. And then she says, I actually bought it for this reason, okay? And then she starts talking about this really cool garden room in the back of a very modern studio setup with two rooms on the side. So what is a setup? A setup is like an arrangement, okay? How something is arranged would be a setup. So she's basically saying that she bought this house or moved into this house for this reason, meaning she liked something about this house. She liked the cool garden room in the back of a very modern studio setup, studio arrangement with 2 rooms on the side. So let's pick out some details about her place, okay? The most important thing, garden, okay? What else? Very modern studio and also 2 rooms on the side. Just pay attention to those words. So she has a garden. It's very much like a studio apartment, and there are 2 rooms, okay? And then she says, isn't that neat? Neat meaning not tidy or organized, but neat. She's asking, isn't that cool? Isn't that nice? Doesn't it sound nice? He says, yeah, it's nice to have nature close to you in your house, isn't it? Perhaps it's nice to have a garden or lots of plants, nature close to you in your house. He says, we have plants as well. Now, Kelly says, plants are beautiful. I filled the room with plants. She says she filled something, the room with something, meaning that the room is full of plants. There are many, many plants in the room. I filled the room with plants, but I keep looking at it thinking I gotta do something really interesting with that room. So what is she saying? Now she has filled one of the 2 rooms with many, many plants, but she says, but I keep looking at it. I keep looking at that room thinking, I have to do something interesting. I have to do something interesting with that room. Interesting is what? Something that is appealing, perhaps, something that grabs your attention or even your curiosity, okay? So she wants to do something with that room, okay? Perhaps add some furniture, paint the walls, make it a bit more interesting, all right? Now she says, or else it doesn't feel right. So I keep racking my brains, thinking, is it going to be a greenhouse? Is it going to be for entertaining an art studio? Okay, so she keeps on thinking, what should I do with this room? But the most important point is, she says, I keep racking my brains. That's a pattern we'll be going over today. Rack one's brains means to think very, very, very hard to solve a problem or to think of something that you can't really remember. Okay, so if you can't remember something, if you keep trying to remember it, if you keep trying very, very hard to remember it, you are racking your brains. Okay, so she's thinking very hard, okay, about what she could do with this room. Now she says it's such a cool room, meaning it's such a nice room. And then Gareth says, have it for everything. Doesn't have to be a greenhouse. It doesn't have to be just an art studio. It can be a little bit of everything. And he says fusion. You've heard of this word many, many times, right? There are many fusion restaurants. Now, a fusion restaurant is a restaurant that serves food from many different countries, all different types of cuisine or dishes, right? So fusion means a mixture or a combination of many different things to make one single thing, okay? She says, I guess that housing it's something that is important. Housing is important. You go and you don't spend a lot of time there if you're busy. That's if you're busy. But it's still yours and it's personal. So she's talking about homes, houses in general. She's saying, your house, your apartment or house, your own place is very important, no matter how much time you spend there. If you're busy, that's true. We tend to finish work or, get done with school. We may come home for a short while, just eat or sleep, and then rush out again, meaning that we don't spend that much time at home. But she's saying it's still your home. It's yours and it's personal. If you say that something is personal, you're saying that it pertains to one person, okay? It's relating to one person, okay? So you're saying that it's very precious to one person. He says, of course, yeah. Moving on. She asks, you like your place, right? And he says, I do, yeah. I love it, but it's super small. Super meaning very small, extremely small. So his place is very, very, very small. It's super small. She says, you mentioned that you wanted to move. That's right. He wanted to move to a larger place with more rooms. And he says, yeah, we do. We meaning him and his wife. So he says it's very small. Well, they always say that. Well, there's that idiom, she says. There's an idiom that goes, home is where the heart is. Okay, and that is an idiomatic expression. We'll practice with that later on. But home is where the heart is. Can you imagine what that could possibly mean? It means that your true home is with the person you love, or your true home is in the place that you love most, okay? It's the home that you consider your true home. It can be with your husband, it can be with your wife, it can be with your parents because you love them so much. Whether it's in a very small place or a wonderfully large place, your home is your true home because it is a place you share with your loved ones, or it is located in a location or a place that you love very, very much, okay? And then she says, but I always feel like it doesn't really matter where you live, as long as you're with people you love. That's right, that's exactly what this idiom means. And she says, and you love what you're doing, right? And of course, Gareth says absolutely. He agrees with her, okay? Thus agreeing with the idiomatic expression. All right, so that pretty much brings us to an end to today's actual talk conversation. Let's take a listen to it one more time.
So Kelly, tell me about your current place. What's it like?
Well, I've actually just moved and it's completely different than any place I've ever lived in before.
Really?
Yeah, it's not Korean style. It's not exactly what I'd consider Western style either.
Right.
If
Sounds
we could
interesting.
say a fusion home.
Wow, classy.
Yeah, because in Canada, well, it's small,
Sure.
but in Canada we had houses, which is very rare. In Korea, you know, European style houses.
Sure, same in Ireland.
And in the past, I always had apartments
Right.
or Korean style apartments. This one is kind of a cross between an office style and I guess you might say a greenhouse.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Nature.
I actually have. I bought it for this reason. This
Sure.
really cool garden room
Oh,
in the back of
lovely.
a very modern studio-like setup with two rooms on the side.
Wonderful.
Isn't that neat?
Oh, yeah. It's nice to
Yeah.
have nature close to you in your house, isn't it? Yeah, we have plants as well.
Plants
Yeah.
are beautiful, so
Aren't they?
I filled the room with plants. But I
Good.
keep looking at it, thinking I got to do something really interesting with
Sure.
that room,
Yeah.
or else it doesn't feel right. So
Sure.
I keep racking my brains, thinking,
Yeah.
is it going to be a greenhouse? Is it going to be for entertaining?
Sure.
An art studio. It's
Sure.
such a cool room.
Have it for everything.
Yeah.
Fusion. Yeah.
Well, fusion.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that housing is. It's something that is important. You go and you don't spend a lot of time there if you're busy, but
Yeah.
it's still yours and it's personal.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You like your place, right?
I do. I love it. Yeah, but it's super small. So
Yeah, you
it's,
mentioned that you wanted to move.
Yeah, we do. We do. It's very small.
Well, they always say that, there's that idiom, home is where the heart is. But
Yeah.
I always feel like it doesn't really matter where you live as long as you're with people you love and you love what you're doing, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Are you ready for today's actual expressions, everyone? I have selected words from our actual talk conversation, and we'll also have the chance to practice the patterns we went over. So quickly, let's take a look at some words. Classy meant what? Something of high grade or rank, okay? So some synonyms could be chic, elegant, or even fashionable. As I said, that classy can also mean very stylish. Cross is what? Okay, keep in mind it's a noun, okay? Cross. It's a blend, it's a mix, it's a mixture, a combination of two very different things. Okay, it's a cross between A and B was the pattern we saw in today's conversation. Greenhouse is what? It's also called an arboretum or nursery in some cases, but I would say arboretum is something you might want to keep in mind. A greenhouse is where usually plants are grown. Okay, moving on to interesting. Synonyms are entertaining or captivating. I said something is interesting if it captures or grabs your attention or curiosity. Fusion. Stress goes right there on the first syllable. Fusion. It's a blend or an integration. Personal. Stress goes right there. Personal. If you say that something is personal, you are saying that it is intimate, very special, relating to a particular person. Okay, moving on. Setup is what? It's an arrangement of something, how something is arranged or organized or planned. So, a sample sentence, it's rather long, but here we go. My wife and I have a great setup. Okay, which means my wife and I have a wonderful arrangement or an agreement. Every other weekend, I'll stay at home with the kids while my wife goes out with her friends. Okay, so what exactly is this person saying? Now, if a guy says, my wife and I have a setup, it means we have an agreement. We have made an arrangement. I stay home one week and the next week she stays home. So we take turns doing things, all right? So that is it, set up. What about racking my brains? To rack one's brains means to think very, very hard to try to remember something or to think of a solution to a problem. Here we go. I've been racking my brains all day, but I can't remember her name. So what are we saying right here? Okay, this person is trying very hard to remember this person's name. Okay, rack one's brains means, once again, to think very, very hard to remember something or to come up with a solution to a problem. Moving on, home is where the heart is. Okay, heart is on the side. So home is where the heart is. It means your true home is with the person you love or with the people you love or in a place that you love. Even though I was raised in the US, even though I grew up in the US, I would rather live in Seoul for the rest of my life. Why? Because home is where the heart is. So in other words, this person is saying that Seoul is his or her true home because it is the place that she or he loves the most. Okay, that about brings us to the end of today's actual expressions. Practice them more on your own.
Well, when you come to Korea, you'll realize that there are lots of people here and there are so many high-rise buildings and apartments. And I think it's really due to the fact that the land area itself is quite small, but there are lots and lots of people. So it's got, the population is pretty high. So when I first looked around to find a nice apartment, I was just really taken aback at how small everything was. But then I really fell in love with the coziness of it and the compact aspect of it because back home in Australia, I've never seen what's called one rooms where you've got no walls in between. You've got the bed and the kitchen just facing each other. So that was a little bit of a surprise, but a pleasant surprise. And I think the one rooms are situated sort of close to universities and lots of central business districts where a lot of business people and one-person households are there as well. So yeah, Korea, when you come here, you'll fall in love with the nice coziness of everything. And yeah, everything's really convenient too, so that's good.
Okay, welcome back everyone to Actual Story. Now, some of you may be saying, I know this person. Well, Joanne has helped us out. She is from Australia, so you might have caught her Australian accent. Now, she did tell us about her current home, so let's figure out what she's mentioned together. She says, the population is pretty high. Population, meaning the number of people, is pretty high. Meaning there are many, many, many people, okay? I really fell in love with the coziness of it and the compact aspect of it. So she's talking about her current home. She fell in love with something. She instantly said, "Oh, I love this place." Why? Because it's cozy. It's very cuddly and cozy, warm kind of. And she said it's compact, very small, not large, but small in a good way. You've got the bed and the kitchen just facing each other. Face each other. So she's talking about the bed and the kitchen. If things are facing each other, or if people are facing each other, they are looking at each other. So she has the bed and the kitchen facing each other. Okay. And then let's move on to our final one. Everything's really convenient. Convenience is something we cannot leave out when choosing a house, right, to live in. Convenience is one of my top priorities when looking for a place. But anyhow, Joanne even says everything is really convenient. So sounds like she lives in a wonderful place. Okay, thanks Joanne. Let's take a listen one more time.
Well, when you come to Korea, you'll realize that there are lots of people here and there are so many high-rise buildings and apartments. And I think it's really due to the fact that the land area itself is quite small, but there are lots and lots of people. So it's got, the population is pretty high. So when I first looked around to find a nice apartment, I was just really taken aback at how small everything was. But then I really fell in love with the coziness of it and the compact aspect of it, because back home in Australia, I've never seen what's called one rooms, where you've got no walls in between. You've got the bed and the kitchen just facing each other. So that was a little bit of a surprise, but a pleasant surprise. And I think the one rooms are situated sort of close to universities and lots of central business districts where a lot of business people and one-person households are there as well. So yeah, Korea, when you come here, you'll fall in love with the nice coziness of everything. And yeah, everything's really convenient too, so that's good.
So Joanne has talked about the neighborhood, or when a foreigner, when they come to Korea, or Seoul especially, what they may feel when they look around. So she's mentioned that there are many people. The population is very high. There are many high-rise buildings. But once you start looking for a place to live in, many places are quite small, but they're nice because they're very cozy, and convenience is something you can easily find in Korea. Okay, so we had a chance to listen to what Joanne had to say, and I hope that you learned a lot and had a lot of fun through our lesson today. We're going to move on and talk about a very similar topic. We're going to stay on the same category, housing, and we'll focus on talking about your neighborhood. We talked about your house today. Next time, let's talk about the neighborhood you live in. Okay, then look forward to that. In the meantime, come to our homepage, everyone. Come on over to www.ebse.co.kr. Look for Actual English with Jennifer. And if you want to leave any messages, or if you want to give us some feedback, feel more than free to do so. Just leave them up on our message board. And while you're there, check out our scripts. Okay, that is a wrap for today's lesson. Thanks for joining me. I'll catch you again next time. Until then, take care and bye for now.